you are listening to 89.5 FM KCFV, The Wave, diverse music for your diverse mind. I'm DJ Gel, and at noon, we will have the news, the weather, spoilers, it's raining, and also, shortly after that, GameBabble Live, our video game news and information show, which airs every Wednesday from noon to 3 p.m. Also, while we're talking about things that are happening, there are two simultaneous festivals going on down here at Florissant Valley Community College. We've got Reg Fest, a registration festival, which is going on from 11 a.m. to 2 p.m., so it's just started and it'll be going till 2. And it says also, and 4:30 to 6:30 p.m. Interesting. At the administration building, we've got fun food and prizes while you register for classes. Just either register for summer or fall classes, get some free food, good times. So if you're registering, that's some registration-y goodness. And we've also got Green Fair 2017, which is from 10:30 a.m. to 1 p.m. at the, let's see, where is this at? In the main quadrangle, weather permitting. It's not Student Center Hallway. There we go. It's in the Student Center Hallway. It says it's featuring the Green Strum Band. Interesting. Don't know a whole lot about this, but, let's see. Great Rivers Environment Law. Missouri Coalition for the Environment. Lots of environmental things. I don't know all the details, but maybe you should come down and find out here at Florissant Valley. So, yeah, come on down. We got Reg Fest, Green Fest, all sorts of festivals. We're feeling so festive. And it's not going to rain on our parade because we're indoors. Anyway, back to the music here on 89.5 FM KCFV, The Wave. Diverse music for your diverse mind. Thank you for listening, and enjoy. Hello, you are listening to 89.5 FM KCFV, The Wave, diverse music for your diverse mind. I'm your host, DJ Gel, and at noon, we will have the news, the weather, and, after a short break, GameBabble Live, our weekly video game news and information show, which airs every Wednesday from noon to 3 p.m. Also, on campus, we got two festivals going on at once. We got Reg Fest and Green Fest. Reg Fest is our registration thing where, hey, you can come on down, register for classes for summer or fall, and get some free food and hang out, and they've got, like, prizes and raffles and things. And that's going on from 11 a.m. to 2 p.m., and it says also 4:30 to 6:30 p.m. as well. So that's a good thing for today if you want to get all registered and stuff. Have something to do while you're waiting in line for registration, things like that. And also Green Fair, which is from 10:30 a.m. to 1 p.m. today at the Student Center. Reg Fest is in the, administration building, I think? Administration building. As for Green Fair 2017, that is some kind of environmental fair thing, featuring the Green Strum Band. So, hey, we got all kinds of festivals going on right now. Get down here to Florissant Valley Community College and get festive. Either way, I'm kicking y'all back to the music here on 89.5 FM, KCFV, The Wave. Diverse music for your diverse mind. Enjoy, and thank you very much for listening. Hello, you are listening to 89.5 FM, KCFV, The Wave. Diverse music for your diverse mind. I'm your host, Gel, and at noon, which is coming up pretty soon, we're going to have news, the weather, short break, and then GameBabble Live, our video game news and information show. It airs every Wednesday from noon to 3 p.m. Also, we've got Green Fair 2017 and the Registration Festival going on at the same time. Come on down here, register for classes, get some free food. Good times there. I actually swung out to go grab some lunch because if I didn't, I was going to start eating this microphone. And as such, swung by the Green Fair, and yeah, it's kind of crazy down there. They've got all sorts of environmental things. There's some booths selling plants. They got one selling heirloom tomatoes for $5. Plants already grown and everything, so if you want you some plants, got Green Fest down here in the Student Center at Florissant Valley. Anyway, I'm going to kick y'all back to the music here on 89.5 FM, KCFV The Wave. Diverse music for your diverse mind. Thank you for listening.
KCFV Ferguson News Break now.
Currently, it is 57 degrees here on the campus of Florissant Valley Community College. I'm Jell with your noon news update. Police investigate shooting in North City. Police are investigating a deadly shooting in North St. Louis. The shooting happened earlier yesterday afternoon on the 1500 block of Cochrane. The victim died at the scene. Kirkwood approves property tax increase. It looks like the Kirkwood School District will get a bit of a financial boost. Yesterday, Kirkwood voters approved Proposition K, which will raise property taxes in order to benefit the school district. This should give the school district an extra $5.8 million per year. And Missouri is a decent state for millennials. Missouri isn't a bad state for millennials. Financial website WalletHub.com recently created a list of the best and worst states for millennials. The site analyzed 24 metrics to create the list. Missouri was ranked number 19, finally! If you've tuned into the news before, Missouri was ranked bad for pets and business, but we're good for millennials. We're pretty good for millennials. We're doing good. Okay, national news. A White House insider, Steve Bannon, is off the National Security Council. President Trump removed his chief strategist during a reorganization of the NSC today. National Security Advisor H.R. McMaster will now be in charge of setting agendas for meetings of the NSC, or Homeland Security Council. UN Ambassador Nikki Haley wants to know how many more children must die under Syrian President Bashar al-Assad before Russia cares. Speaking before the UN Security Council today, Haley said yesterday's chemical weapon attacks in Syria that killed over 80 people, quote, bears the hallmark of the Assad regime, unquote. Haley said Russia cannot escape responsibility by backing Assad and providing him with weapons. The Trump administration is pulling out the stops in an effort to revise the failed GOP health care bill. Vice President Mike Pence held discussions with White House Republicans late last night on changes to the bill. The White House wants the House to act on a new bill before the Easter recess next week. And Shia LaBeouf is coming up short in the box office. The actor's new film, Man Down, opened in the UK this weekend and took in $8.71. That's the price of one ticket at the one theater it was playing at. It's the story of a U.S. Marine, played by LaBeouf, who comes home from Afghanistan to find his family missing. Guess you could say he just couldn't do it. Anyway, in campus news, I've mentioned this a couple times, we got Registration Fest going on right now, and the Green Fair, double festival action here at Florissant Valley Community College. Reg Fest is from 11 a.m. to 2 p.m., and then again from 4:30 to 6:30 p.m. today at the administration building. And yeah, you can get like food and prizes and things as you register for classes for summer or fall. And Green Fair 2017 is going on from 10:30 a.m. to 1 p.m. in the student center sort of hallway thing down there. I got a little band playing called Green Strum Band, and there's a bunch of booths set up to talk about environmental things. And they're also like selling plants. They got heirloom tomatoes for $5. Good times for all. One booth has that. There's a bunch of different plants and things you can buy. Anyway, if you want heirloom tomatoes, they're down there. Moving right along, it's time for the weather. Today, we've got thunderstorms with a high of 58 and a low of 41. Tomorrow, partly cloudy with some wind, high of 56, low of 38. I was hearing there was cold front coming through, so it'll be a little chilly tomorrow. Friday, it will be sunny with a high of 60 and a low of 41, so it starts getting better. Saturday, partly cloudy, high of 73, low of 56. And Sunday, it's going to be partly cloudy and windy, and it's going to be 80 degrees. High of 80, low of 63. So, yeah, that cold front ain't going to last particularly long. It is time for spring. Spring has finally sprung. Actually, we might be springing into summer because Missouri. That's how we do. Anyway, that concludes our news and weather for today. Please stay tuned to 89.5 FM KCFV The Wave for GameBabble Live after a short break, our video game news and information show here on this very channel. So please stay tuned, and thank you so much for listening. But for right now, I'm kicking you all back to the music. Hello, you're listening to 89.5 FM KCFV The Wave, diverse music for your diverse mind, and this is GameBabble Live, our video game news and information show, which airs every Wednesday from noon to 3 p.m. I'm your host, Del. This is GameBabble Live. As usual, we kick it off with new releases, what came out this week, what's coming out next week. Following that, the Anime in Theaters report. And then following that, we got all sorts of video game news to talk to you about. So, new releases. PlayStation 3 has gotten its final game, and it's Persona 5. Yes, Persona 5 has been released on both PlayStation 3 and 4, because that's how they roll in Japan, but actually PS3 production stopped in Japan officially, so things are going to get a little weird now. But, yeah, Persona 5, if you don't have a PlayStation 4, don't worry about it, it's on PS3. Jeez, I almost want to pick up the PS3 one because of that, but I got on PS4. We'll talk about it later in the show. Speaking of the PlayStation 4, we got Air Conflict Secret Wars Ultimate Edition, Arma Gallant, Decks of Destiny, Blackwood Crossing, Drawn to Death, Lego City Undercover, which was that Wii U launched, Wii U launch title that is now on everything else, just like every other Wii U launch title. Mortal Blitz for the PlayStation VR, and are we going to talk about that? I am a very, very happy man because of that game. Mr. Masagi, which is it says it's a dating sim, and then your controller gives you a massage? I don't know. I couldn't find screenshots. Anyway, Parappa the Rapper Remastered is on PlayStation 4 as well. I will say it does look like just an emulation at high res with like filtered textures, but it's kind of nice. I mean, it's hard to get the original Parappa, so it's there. And hey, Parappa 2's already on PS4 as a PS2 classic, so all it's missing is Jammer Lammy, which is on PS3 and PSP and Vita as a PS1 classic, which is a thing I wish the PS4 did. Anyway, Persona 5, mentioned that came to PS4. Oh, baby, is it on PS4. Plutobi, the Dwarf Planet Tales is on PS4. I just realized that is someone made a game about the sad adventures of Pluto. Great. Rocket League, The Fate of the Furious. Really? So, I guess that's an expansion for Rocket League based on the new Fast and the Furious movie? Interesting. Game called Use Your Words. Also, a collection of videos of animals called Viri VR. Don't buy it, it's crap. Watch Dogs 2, No Compromise. And coming in 2 days, we will have Bulletstorm Full Clip Edition on PS4. On Wii U, it has tomorrow it will be getting its last game in the form of Animal Gods. On Xbox One, we have Dead Rising 4, Frank Rising, Lego City Undercover again, Rocket League The Fate of Furious expansion, and Use Your Words. And today we got Blackwood Crossing, and then on the 7th, Bulletstorm Full Clip Edition there. 3DS got Shovel Knight, Spectre of Torment, and tomorrow it will be getting Dragon Sinker and Pinball Breakout. And the Switch tomorrow will be getting some kind of a game called Graceful Explosion Machine. So that's what came out this week. Next week on PS4, Cosmic Star Heroine finally comes out. If you're unfamiliar with this game, way back on the Xbox 360 Indies, there was this small indie group that did a game called Breath of Death 7. It was a fun little retro RPG where you played a skeleton. Then they made another game called Cthulhu Saves the World. Both of these have been released on Steam. They got really good reviews, and they were like, wow, we're good at making RPGs. We're going to put, like, real effort into making a big, fancy, dramatic RPG, and that was Cosmic Star Heroine. I remember hearing about this game, like, a year before it was talked about on the Penny Arcade Report, which is a site that has been defunct, and with good reason, for quite a while now. So I thought this game was already out. It should have. How long has this been in development? Like, it's an 8-bit retro pixel art game, and I think this has been like a good 4 or 5 years of development, maybe. Speaking of retro pixel art, Caro Blaster will be coming to PlayStation 4 next week as well. Caro Blaster, by the way, is the new game from the creator of Cave Story. So if you like Cave Story and wish it involved a frog, Caro Blaster. Starblood Arena will be hitting the PlayStation VR, the first, boxed PS VR release we've had, since Eagle Flight, I think? So I'm pretty excited about that. It's basically, if you remember the old game Descent, it's what happens if you mix, Descent and Overwatch is the basic idea. And it's going to have head tracking based aiming, which I think will be great in that. In fact, that's half the reason I'm excited about it. Because, Descent was a game where you were spinning around in 360 degrees in a spaceship going through tunnels trying to shoot at people. And it was a little tricky to aim. You give me head tracking based aiming? Oh, there's some potential there. Stardew Valley Collector's Edition will also be on PS4 next week. Also on PSVR, Symphony of the Machine, which is one of those VR experiences. And Yooka-Laylee, the mildly controversial game from the creators of Banjo-Kazooie. I don't know if they've apologized for their horrible PR yet or not. Anyway, and then on the 14th, Flint Hook. Anyway, Xbox One will be getting a game called Crawl, Stardew Valley Collector's Edition. The Sexy Brew Tale, which I think is a game about a bar in medieval times, maybe? I was having a very hard time getting any good information on that game. And Yooka-Laylee also hits Xbox One. The Vita will be getting a Rose in the Twilight on the 11th and Ray Gigant on the 14th. I think Ray Gigant involves giant robots, not sure, but that's a good name. And the Switch on the 13th will be getting the Jackbox Party Pack. And that concludes what we know about coming out next week. Now, anime in theaters. On the 7th, Your Name will be in theaters. That's supposed to be, actually, 7th to the 13th now. Your Name will be in theaters. This is a anime about, a boy and a girl who don't know each other, and they mysteriously wake up in one another's body and switch back and forth every night, which sounds like a pretty cliche tale, except for some reason, it's the highest-grossing movie Japan has ever made, before even releasing it in America, and people were like, it was snubbed at the Oscars. Apparently, they say it's Oscar-worthy, so I don't know. Anyway, it's actually getting a regular theater release for a couple days, so there will be multiple showtimes, but they just extended the playtime, okay, if you want to see it in normal theaters, it'll be from the 7th to about the 9th or 10th, I think it'll be in normal theaters, the St. Charles 18, I think. And then the Tivoli, though, is going to keep playing it until the 13th at least. So, if you wind up missing out and you're like, oh man, I meant to see that, it'll still be at the Tivoli. Thank you, Tivoli. Also, on the 7th will be Spirited Away for free at the Omnimax. I'll tell you more about that in just a minute. Anyway, April 26th, Cabaneri of the Iron Fortress will be airing at 7 p.m. at St. Charles 18. I hear they're adding it to more theaters, but I have not found any proof of this. It's part of Crunchyroll's anime movie night thing that they're going to start doing, and it's a double feature, 2 different films which will recap the story of the TV series condensed down into film format, and that'll be at 7 p.m. at St. Charles 18, April 26th. Also, May 12th and 13th, My Neighbor Totoro will be at the Tivoli. On the 12th, it'll just be at 11:55 p.m., and on the 13th, it will be of May, it will be noon and 11:55 p.m. So I'm going to guess the 13th is probably a dub one. One night's going to be sub, one night's going to be dub. Either way, Tivoli will be doing that in May. Anyway, let's get back to that thing I just mentioned. Yeah, guess what? This Friday is the Anime Invasion at the Science Center. Yeah, it's a big, crazy anime event. It's like a miniature convention, which is a great way to kick off con season, am I right? I mean, I'm busy saving up and arranging to go to Anime Central. I've got, we got Anime STL coming up, and why not kick everything off by just going to the Science Center, and it's just free. Free Anime Con. All activities are free. Hey, it says free parking on First Friday. All items are marked with TR required tickets. Tickets for free screenings available at any box office. Starting at 6 p.m. So yeah, we've got stuff like a cosplay spotlight. So if you are prepping your cosplay costume for the convention season, you may as well give it a test run at the Anime Invasion. There's going to be, at 7:30, there's a panel, Gundam Science Mech Suits in the Real World. We've got people talking about cosplay in the anime community, and my sister's actually going to be down there talking about careers in animation and design, along with her class. So that's a thing. We've got just so many random things. Hey, here we go. Test local video games from members of the St. Louis Game Developer Co-op. Learn more about Geekonomics, STL, Archon, Anime, St. Louis, and Extra Life. They've got a... Yeah, it's not exactly Macross, but check out Robo Mode to see some locally designed robots. Anime Egg Roll will be having a Gundam building contest. It is literally a miniature convention at the Science Center this Friday at about 6 p.m.-ish. So that might be a thing you might want to look into. Anyway, we've got some local music right now. That about sums up our anime report, along with our game releases. We got some local music you need to listen to, and oh, geez, look at the time. Yeah, I know, so much to talk about this week in terms of crazy anime stuff. Oh yeah, and don't forget that we got the Green Fest going down at the Student Center, along with Registration Fest. So, lots of things going on. I'm going to get you back to some of our local music, because that's the thing we should be doing at the noontime hour, while I get a swig of soda, because, holy God, it's starting to dry up here. So, thank you very much for listening to 89.5 FM KCF Feed the Wave. And stay tuned for more GameBabble Live as we get into some very interesting video game news. Very interesting, I promise you. I got a Switch. I'm going to talk all about Switch and games that aren't Zelda to play on it. Because if you have a Switch, you've probably beaten Zelda, how many times? 2? 3? Anyway, getting y'all back to the music. Thank you very much for listening to 89.5 FM KCFE, The Wave. Apparently, I'm the music you love. Hello, and welcome back to GameBabble Live here on 89.5 FM KCFE, The Wave, diverse music for your diverse mind. And I have to offer a quick update. Apparently, the information I had was wrong. Spirited Away will cost money. It will be $6. The tickets should be $6, $5 for students. I said it was free because the schedule I have says it's free. But I'm getting conflicting reports. The information on the Anime Invasion's a little bit iffy. I have no clue where this schedule even came from, because I tried to go to the official Science Center website, and they're like, oh, play like classic sci-fi movies on the Omnimax. Yeah, Spirited Away is a classic sci-fi movie. Fantastic. There's something about King Kong vs. Godzilla at the planetarium, though, which I'm kind of interested in that if Spirited Away fills up. Like, that is sounding like an event. I don't think the Science Center knows what it's getting itself into. Woo, good times. So, time for news. Let's see, where do we start? I know where we should start. Mass Effect Andromeda is getting a big, huge update. They're very sorry the game was a mess. Let's see, what are they saying is going to be in this update? That'll be tomorrow. The April 6th Mass Effect Andromeda patch 1.05 will have improved tutorial placement, single-player balance changes, multiplayer balance changes, added option to skip autopilot sequences in the galaxy map, improved logic, timing, and continuity for relationship and story arcs, improved lip sync and facial acting during conversations, including localized VO. Fixed various collision issues, fixed bugs in music where VO wouldn't play or wasn't correct, fixed issue where global squadmate banter sometimes wasn't firing on UNCs, fixed issue where player was unable to access the Remnant console interface after failing decryption multiple times, fixed issue where fast travel is sometimes disabled after recruiting Drac until the player reloads a save, fixed issue where Ryder can become stuck in the start of biotic charge pose, fixed issues related to some save, fixed issues where objects sometimes became uninteractable for players in multiplayer, streaming and stability improvements, also fixing riders' movements when running in a zigzag pattern. Future updates say that they are going to offer more options and variety in the character creator, improvements for hair and general appearance for characters, ongoing improvements to cinematic scenes and animations, improvements for male romance options for Scott Ryder, and adjustments to conversations with Hanley Abrams. I actually saw something funny in the comments to this. Well, what was it? Someone was talking about the male romance options for Scott Ryder, and they're wondering if they're going to add in, like, Jawl as an option. I haven't played the game. But apparently, someone checked the disc, and on the disc, they have a male romance option for Jawl. They have, like Jawl is bisexual according to the data on the disc, but in-game only women can romance him. I swear if that was a bug that made him straight, I am going to laugh. Which, considering how Mass Effect Andromeda was turning out, wouldn't be too surprising. Koei Tecmo has recently got the rights to the title Seiken Musou. However, it probably is not a Secret of Mana Musou game. It might be King Arthur related? Maybe to an upcoming movie? Interesting. Oh, and apparently tomorrow, Microsoft is going to reveal Project Scorpio, which is basically the Xbox One equivalent of the PS4 Pro. So we're gonna see what goes on with that. You know what I think is the far more interesting news, though? On April 1st, it was revealed that Street Fighter EX4 might be a thing. Now, I know what you're thinking. April Fool's Day, we got some leaked screenshots and then some leaked footage, and we're like, good April Fool's joke, you guys. Good job, Arika. And then Arika went on to stream the game being played for more than 3 hours. They have a functional version of the game with 2 stages and 3 characters, and they played it for hours, and everyone's like, this is a really elaborate April Fool's joke, and they're like, it wasn't a joke, we just don't have the money to fund it. And they've continued talking about it after April 1st, like they recently tweeted out that they'd consider Kickstarter, but they don't know anything about Kickstarter. Apparently their whole April Fool's Day stream was just to, like, see if there was any sort of interest in a Street Fighter EX4. To which, yes, there is. While Street Fighter EX wasn't all that successful back when it came out, looking back on it now, they were actually pretty darn decent games, and the characters didn't quite fit Street Fighter, but they were nice. It might not be Street Fighter EX, however. Like, it's the EX characters, but I didn't see any Street Fighter characters, so it might be like Fighting Layer or something. It might just be EX, no Street Fighter. But I'm super happy to see that. I would love to bring back my tag team of Poem Perna and Area. Except they didn't show any tag team. What I saw of the game, though, it looked better than Street Fighter V, which honestly isn't saying much. Another funny bit of news, apparently the Evolution fighting game tournament has sort of a Japanese satellite preliminary tournament that they're doing, and Street Fighter V was actually dropped from it in favor of Smash Brothers on Wii U. Ouch. Yeah. Street Fighter V didn't go over very well. I'm glad Resident Evil 7 went over well, because Street Fighter V was not. Okay. Moving right along, there are reports now, in the cavalcade of problems the Nintendo Switch slams face first into, people are reporting that their Nintendo Switches are starting to bend and warp. And there have been multiple reports of this. People are saying that it's because it, like, overheats a little bit and starts to melt. However, a lot of the reports say that they played the game primarily in portable mode. That's the thing I want to know about. Like, does it overheat at all when it's in the charging station? Because I'm wondering if maybe it's just bending because people are playing it in portable mode. And I've seen people bend and twist controllers a lot when they play, sometimes to some pretty ridiculous extremes. I'm wondering if the players might accidentally be bending it. Either way, it's certainly below Nintendo's typical standards. speaking of the Switch, Lego City Undercover... was that not on my list? Lego City Undercover came out for the Switch, too. Anyway, Lego City Undercover came out for the Switch, as well as everything else, and it does not require a 13-gig download on the Switch. What's up with this? Well, on the back of the box for Lego City Undercover, it says it requires a 13-gig download, and this caused people to freaking panic. Not only because the Switch only has 32 gigs of internal memory, so that's a pretty hefty chunk, but people were worried, can the cartridges not hold enough? Because one of the biggest crazy things about Switch is the fact that it doesn't use discs, it uses cartridges again. And people are like, but I thought cartridges were too small and expensive. Well, cartridges are still a little pricey, but the size has improved drastically, and so they're much more viable than they were. Honestly, we're getting to a weird point where discs, for right now, are starting to become mildly obsolete. But, a lot of people were really worried, because when they saw Lego City Undercover required a 13-gig download, they were like, does it not hold the game on the cartridge? Have we already reached the limits of the Switch cartridges? No, false alarm. We don't know why that was printed on the box, but it was printed on the box. I actually looked at the box. It's printed on there. Moving far, far away from the Switch, Senran Kagura Peach Beach Splash will be coming to America this summer. I talked about this in a previous thing. It's a very extreme beach squirt gun fighting game. And I was very amused at what they chose for a final boss. By the way, having beaten the game now in Japanese, it actually ends with a preview of Senran Kagura 7. The next game will be a serious entry, as serious as a Senran Kagura game gets, which actually is surprisingly serious. But the next game will be a mainline serious entry in the series. But for right now, we got squirt gun fights coming, and it's going to be great. They'll be on PS4 this summer. And now for something that I'm super excited about. They are bringing Jak and Daxter, Jak 2, Jak 3, and Jak X to PS4 as PS2 classics really, really soon. Thank goodness. Now, I know what you're thinking. Wait, didn't they already do a Jak and Daxter collection on the PS3 where it was all HD? Why are they doing it again? Little problem with that one. The PS3 Vita Jak and Daxter collection didn't have Jak X. And Jak X is one of my favorite games of all time. Absolutely my favorite game that involves vehicles of all time. Like, not just racing. I like it more than any vehicle combat Twisted Metal game, too. Jak X Combat Racing is mind-blowing, even though it is one of the buggiest games I've ever played. It was so good, I was willing to look past its numerous bugs. But here's the reason why the PS4 release is super important. Jak X is so buggy, it doesn't run on slim PS2s. And as such, I don't think it runs on the old PS3s either. So the only way to play Jak X is on a fat PS2, which are notoriously fragile and break. And I've had mine for like more than a decade, and it's probably due to break really soon. So I've been worried about that, about the day when my PlayStation 2 finally breaks completely and can no longer play Jak X. And I was like, what are we going to do about this? How many fat PS2s am I going to have to buy and refurbish just to be able to play my Jak X? Thankfully, it's coming to PlayStation 4, and I'm very intrigued by this because, like I said, it was so buggy. Like, most of why the game crashed was because of, like, the system being overloaded, so maybe it'll crash less? Maybe it'll have a smoother frame rate? Like, you could only do 2-player split screen in it, and it dropped the graphics like a friggin' rock and ran at, like, half frame rate to do 2-player split screen. Could that run smoothly on PS4? Like, that has me way too excited. And at the same time, I'm wondering if they're going to back down from this, considering how much that game crashed. Like, me and a friend played through the story mode. The game actually crashed when he landed the final hit on the end boss. That game crashed a lot. And I'm like, can they port it to PS4? Because the trailer for it only showed the first game. It only showed Jak and Daxter. Are they going to back down? Are they going to go, this game's too buggy to port? And more than that, we know it is likely not going to have the online play, which is a disappointment. Real question, how are they going to handle the PSP link-up? Because the original Jack X, you linked it to the PSP game Daxter, and it unlocked a bunch of bonus characters and a bonus car. Is that going to be cut? Is that going to be unlocked from the beginning? Are they going to completely forget that even happened? I don't know. We'll find out later. Whew. So, let's see. Does that about cover all of the... Yeah, that about covers all of the little news. So, I'm going to take a break, and when we come back, we'll talk about the Nintendo Switch and what games to play other than Zelda, how it's holding up for me, how I'm liking it. We'll talk Switch. And then after that, we'll likely talk Persona 5. And then after that, we'll do our PlayStation VR report because, oh my god, Mortal Blitz is finally here, and it's so good, even though it has some flaws. I'm so happy. So very, very happy. Anyway, back to the diverse music for your diverse mind here on 89.5 FM KCFV, The Wave. Thank you so much for listening. That was a cover of Tiny Dancer by local artist Give Them My Name. I wish I could see the look on my mother's face right now. Hey Mom, how's your face? Anyway, this is 89.5 FM KCFV, The Wave. Diverse music for your diverse mind. You know, I actually kind of love covers that change a song so much you can barely recognize it. They're kind of fun. Anyway, this is GameBabble Live. You never know what's going to show up on this. This is GameBabble Live, our video game news and information show, which airs every Wednesday from noon to 3 p.m. Oh, by the way, we've also got Registration Fest and Green Fest going on down here. Registration Fest is where you can, here at Florissant Valley Community College, come on down here, get registered for classes for summer or fall, and you can get some free food and good times. That's going on until, I think it was 2? I think it was 2. I've lost my, there it is. 2. And then it starts back up again from 4:30 to 6:30 p.m. And the Green Fair, that's going on until 1 p.m., and it's all sorts of booths talking about environmental things and selling plants, and got a band down there, the Greenstrum Band, I think they're called. The Greenstrum Band, yes, I am correct. Good. So, before we hit the top of the hour, let's talk a little bit about the Nintendo Switch, because I finally got my hands on mine, and yeah, the general consensus from me is it's freaking adorable. It needs more games. Like, I love it. It's so small. Like, you think you know how big the Switch is, you don't. It's tiny. Like, it is, like, even with the controllers on the side, it is actually smaller than the Wii U gamepad. And when you take the controllers off and you have just the system with the screen, yeah, that thing's small. I mean, technically, it's kind of about a little larger than a cell phone. Like, a little taller, a little more screen-sized screen, but I guess it's about cell phone shaped, and the kind of graphics it's putting out, like, that's sort of the thing. Like, you compare it to the PS4 and the Xbox One, and okay, it doesn't seem all that powerful, but you sit just that little screen down, and you look at it, and your mind is blown, because it's like, wow, those are some impressive visuals for something so small and compact. As a portable, it's amazing, and I think that's definitely the big hiccup, because a lot of people are looking at the Switch, and they're trying to compare it to the PS4 and Xbox One, understandably so, because the way for a console to succeed is to be able to get multi-platform ports. If we could get all the PS4 games put onto the Switch, that would be amazing. Like, if everything that hit PS4 in Japan also came to Switch, it would be a truly incredible little system. But unfortunately, it's a good question if that's going to happen. I'm kind of wondering what the deal is with Persona 5, honestly, because like I said, that came to PS3. The Switch could handle Persona 5, as incredible as it is. Switch could handle that. So, where's the talk about a Switch version of Persona 5? I don't hear anything. How about Digimon World Next Order? The Switch could sure as heck handle that. Where's that? That's what I want to know. I want to know where all the game development is. And I'm kind of worried because, like I did right there, I'm comparing it to consoles. And it's a really impressive portable, but it's a question of if it can compete with consoles. And it's a question of if we can get people to, if it's going to be an impressive portable, look at it as a portable. If it can get the same kind of support that the 3DS gets. That's sort of one of the other things that drove me nuts. There's this Mario Sports Collection, which I really need to look into, that just came out for the 3DS. And I'm looking at it and I'm like, why isn't this on Switch? A collection of Mario sports games right out the gate on the Switch would have been great. And, they darn near could have just ported that way. I mean, they really need to add in some local multiplayer, but, why is that on the 3DS and not the Switch? That would have been a great Switch title. When's our first Mario sports game for the Switch? And that's where the big hiccup is. I will say, get a screen protector. I went ahead and bought the case and screen protector, and it was a bit of a pain in the butt to put on. I put it on, and then I've got long hair, and a piece of hair got under there. That was a problem. So I had to find a way to take it off so I could get the hair out. Oh, that was a pain in the butt. But the screen protector is actually really nice. You don't even notice that it's on there. And it is preventing the screen from getting scratched up, so very nice. And I'm just looking at the time, and we need to get boogieing. I will be right back after a short break. So please stay tuned to 89.5 FM KCFE, the Wave, diverse music for your diverse mind. Thank you very much for listening. Remember what I said about covers so crazy they're almost unrecognizable? That was like the inverse of that. That was Mama Said by Lucas Graham, and I wasn't the only person hearing that, right? Like how the tune had a bit of Hard Knock Life mixed into it. I don't know. Anyway, you're listening to 89.5 FM KCFE, the Wave, diverse music for your diverse mind. I'm your host, Jell, and this is GameBabble Live, our video game news and information show, which airs every Wednesday from noon to 3 p.m. And we were talking about the Nintendo Switch and how it's really nice. Choose some games. Now, of course, did pick up Zelda on it, and this is the most I've enjoyed a Zelda since Link to the Past. I mean, oh, egad. You want to talk about... talking about me and my history with Zelda is a bit of a problem. I just think the series got way too linear and way too puzzly. And egad, Breath of the Wild, fixes all the problems I've had with Zelda. Darn nearly. I mean, number one, you could jump again. You could jump in a Zelda game. I don't believe it. There's a jump button. Thank you. Number two, you can pretty much go anywhere. After you get off the tutorial plateau, I'm hearing you can just go straight to Ganon. You don't really need to play the rest of the game. You could just go straight to Ganon. It's gonna be hard. You're supposed to, recruit the help of 4 heroes from 4 different tribes of Hyrule to take down Ganon, and each one, takes off a life bar and helps you out with that dungeon. But if you want to go in there and let Ganon freaking one-shot you, yeah, you can. It's not a good idea, but you can. The game is pretty darn nice. It's the Zelda game I had been wishing they would make. I know some people are a little disappointed because there have been so many free-roaming open-world games recently, because that buzzword sells, that Breath of the Wild, it kind of borrows elements from a lot of them. People are talking about how the big Hyrulean towers that come out of the ground are like the towers in the Far Cry series. Stuff like that. And it's good thing I didn't play Far Cry. See, I have a major beef with most open-world games. It's funny. The grand majority of them are you could go anywhere and do anything, but we have this set, boring main character that you really don't care about. Very few of them give you a custom character. Part of the reason why I like Saints Row so much is one of the few that did it right. And admittedly, obviously, Zelda doesn't give you a custom character either. But, you play as Link. But it's still a fantastic Zelda game, but I completely agree with everyone who is complaining about weapon durability. In fact, there's one complaint I haven't heard about weapon durability. Like, basically, okay, you get a ton of weapons in Breath of the Wild, but they can all break. And they kind of tend to break really fast. There's a flaw not a lot of people mention. You see, the game is really nice about auto-saving and letting you retry fights. Well, I'm running around the world, and I randomly run into this freaking rock monster boss, and I'm like, I'm gonna beat this thing. And I try again, and I can get it down pretty far, and then I'm like, okay, I'm gonna go all out. I have a sword that is really good, but it's about to break, and I use it until it breaks, then I use a spear until it's flashing red, and I get the rock monster down past half health, then I lose. Like, okay, I'm gonna try this again. Where's my sword? Where'd all my weapons go? I get to retry the boss fight, and it saved before the boss fight, but it saved what weapons had broken. So I am almost completely out of weapons now, and I can't really fight this boss unless I remember where this thing is, because it literally pops out of the ground. It's made of rocks. So now I have to travel around and find a bunch of weapons before I fight a stupid rock monster again. And little annoying. I remember hearing one of my friends complaining about the frame rate in the Switch version of Breath of the Wild, and I'm not saying it. Like, I saw a frame rate dip once or twice, but no, it's running pretty solid. That is a solid frame rate. And honestly, I'm hearing the Wii U version is just fine. Because, a lot of people are like, oh, you gotta get a Switch to play Breath of the... No, I'm sick of that. No, it's a Wii U game that was ported to the Switch. Runs fine on Wii U. If I could complain about anything, I love the art, I love the visuals. I'm not actually a big fan of the environment. I think the environment looks okay, but I'm disappointed because, I know a lot of people are going to say, well, it was a Wii U game. Yeah, exactly. Xenoblade Chronicles X was on Wii U. That's why I'm disappointed. In fact, the Xenoblade Chronicles X team helped with Zelda Breath of the Wild. And, Xenoblade Chronicles X is a way better looking environment. Just that world. Yeah! That is an amazing looking world. But Breath of the Wild is fine. I think they got a little too carried away with the grass. Like, the grass in that game is stupid. Because it's all blowing in the wind with individual blades of grass that you can cut every single freaking one of them because everyone knows The Legend of Zelda is a lawn mowing simulation. I'm still pretty early into Zelda, but I'm enjoying it. The same day I was cracking into that, I also rented Final Fantasy 15, and then I got sidetracked by Persona 5 and Mortal Blitz, that game. Talk about that later. But, okay, so everyone knows Zelda. Everyone loves Zelda. Yay, new Zelda's super good. New Zelda's the best. What you do after that? What is there? And this is where the problem comes in, because a lot of people are looking at the boxed releases. New. There are 2 downloadable games that you're going to want for your Switch. Fast Racing RMX and Blaster Master Zero. Now, Fast Racing RMX is cheating. If you want to show off the graphical capabilities of your Switch, using that is cheating. Because that game actually came out on the Wii U as Fast Racing Neo. This is sort of an enhanced, upgraded version. And it looked just as gorgeous. It is a beautiful looking game. I think it runs at a higher resolution now on the Switch. But that game is beautiful. It's basically F-Zero. Fast Racing RMX is a high-speed hover vehicle racing game, heavily F-Zero inspired. Beautiful, fast, runs smooth, online play. I think they're selling it for like $15-$20. That is definitely something other than Zelda to play on your Switch. And then Blaster Master Zero. I have joked about this game a couple times as being the most pointless remake of anything ever, because it is an 8-bit pixel art remake of the original Blaster Master on the NES. And I'm going to say I hate the changes to the story, because they overcomplicated it. Like, I really like the fact that the story of Blaster Master is just about a kid who has a pet frog, and then the frog escapes and grows giant and falls into a hole, and he falls into a hole after it and bumps his head on a hot pink tank, which belongs to, like, a hot alien girl, and they go off to go find this pet frog, and in the process, by the way, alien girl informs you there's this crazy, like, underground alien invasion, literally underground, and you wind up becoming Jason, the main character, winds up becoming the secret protector of the Earth. I like that a lot better than this being the far future and Earth had a second ice age and mankind built shelters underground, but now they've come to the surface of the frog, it's still a frog thing named Freddy, but it looks more like Froggy from Sonic Adventure and is like a crazy magic space frog or something. And, Jason is an expert in robotics engineering. I'm like, eh. But now I finally get the name. At first, I thought this was going to be a meta fight game in Japan, but no, I think this is actually released as Blaster Master Zero in Japan as well. Which makes a lot of sense for them, because on PS1, there was a Blaster Master game. There was a 3D Blaster Master game. Released in America as Blaster Master Blasting Again. But in Japan, even though Blaster Master is like the American butchering of Metafight, they kept the Blaster Master name. In Japan, Blaster Master Blasting Again is just called Blaster Master. So that's their first game. So since this is a remake of the original Blaster Master, which is the game that comes before Blasting Again, that makes it Blaster Master Zero. Now I get it. But enough talk about the canon of the game about finding your pet frog by using a tank. Why is this one good? Well, the game is still very much original Blaster Master, but cleaned up and improved. It's like, oh, hey, we've got more layers of parallax and more colors, more detailed enemies. The music, it's still the classic music, but it's like more, like it's remixed to be a little bit faster and more upbeat, more instruments. And the game is just tighter, faster, snappier. Like, it feels so much better to platform now. Shooting enemies feels so good now. And you start the game with this triple missile special weapon. You find way more special weapons. You're encouraged to actually use them to take out enemies. And you can use the shoulder buttons to automatically, like, aim your tank's cannon into the up right or up left position, which makes it even easier to shoot things down. And then when you get out of the tank and you're running around in the top-down view stages, you can actually lock the position that you're in and strafe around, which strafing improves those so much. Those sections weren't very good on the NES. They were very mediocre, but they were neat because they were different. But now that I can strafe, they are a lot better, and I think there's more bosses to fight now, because now they got some, like, mini areas with mini bosses. It's just really cleaned up and improved and way tighter. That game is also available on the 3DS, mind you. But and I'm sure it'll eventually make it to Steam. But right now, if you want to play it on a TV, the only way to do that is the Nintendo Switch, or like having one of those modded 3DSs, which those are a pain in the butt to get. So, yeah, neither of these things are things where I'd say, oh, if you have a Switch, you totally, neither of these are like system sellers. But I know that everyone with the Switch is sitting there going, well, I beat Zelda, now what? This is the now what. Obviously, I'm not, I would recommend looking up some videos of them on YouTube, see if there's something you're interested in, but those two are the two that really have me impressed, and Waku Waku 7's on the Switch, which, that is an old fighting game on the Neo Geo. There's a bunch of Neo Geo games that have been ported to Switch. But that one matters because it's actually my favorite fighting game of all time. Like, I actually bought the AES home cart of it, which those things are stupid expensive and huge. I love Waku Waku 7. I've called myself the world's biggest Waku Waku 7 fan. I used to run a website called Waku Waku Astra Galaxy, which was all about the game. And this is actually the first time it's ever been released in America. Like, it's had an English translation, and technically there's an English arcade release that probably was in 2 arcades tops. But in terms of home ports, we never got any of the home ports. We never got it on Saturn, which it ran like crap on Saturn anyway. We never got the PS2 port, which is really nice. And believe it or not, it was on the Wii's Virtual Console in Japan. But unfortunately, it was borderline impossible to get Japanese Virtual Console games on the US system. So Switch is the first time that you can get Waku Waku 7 in America. Now, I'm going to say, trying to play that thing on the little mini half Joy-Cons, honestly, on those controllers in general, because the Nintendo Switch doesn't have a D-pad, and the analog sticks are kind of for fighting games. Like, I like to play fighting games with analog sticks, and those are kind of Having said that, Waku Waku 7 does play well with the directional buttons they have, due to the way its inputs are. It plays pretty well, but yeah, it's a bit of a toss-up. I'm also noticing that I don't know if there's a way to play as... I need to test this out, but I don't think there's a way to play as Bonus Coon and Fernandez on the Switch version, because it's the arcade version instead of the home version. There's no option to switch it. I wonder if I can contact the company that did the port and ask them to patch that in. Whatever. By the way, if you're going to play it on a TV, though, I would highly recommend turning on the filters, because for some reason, the game looks like really washed out and grainy if you have it like pixel by pixel. It's like, this doesn't look right. I've played a million ports of Waku Waku 7. It never looked this grainy before. So I would recommend turning on the filter, which I think is on by default. Either way, those are the games that are on the Switch that are like that are very much worth playing, and I'm like, these are nice. These are good alternatives for after you beat your Zeldas. I haven't gotten very far into Super Bomberman R. Yeah, no, Switch is nice. Switch is very nice. Anyway, I think I need to take a quick break. Gonna kick y'all back to the music. But before I do that, I'd like to remind you that we've got Reg Fest going on until 2 p.m., then starting back up at 4:30 to 6:30 p.m., which is come on down to the administration building, get registered for summer and fall classes, have some food, have a good time. Have a real good time. And Green Fair 2017 is going on... never mind. It's going on until 1 p.m. It's 1:18. So, we still got Reg Fest going until 2, though. And then starting back up at 4. Anyway, so you're listening to 89.5 FM, KCFE, The Wave. Diverse music for your diverse mind. And now, back to that diverse music. Please enjoy and stay tuned for GameBabble Live. We'll be back in a moment. Thank you for listening. Hello, you are listening to 89.5 FM KCFE, The Wave, diverse music for your diverse mind. I'm your host, Jell. This is GameBabble Live, our video game news and information show, which airs every Wednesday from noon to 3 p.m. So, we just got done talking about Switch, which I hope I made it clear. I love this little thing. It's got real potential from, like, a conceptual angle. And, yeah, it really needs to find its niche and start getting some actual games on it, and I think that's going to be the hard part, because, that's usually the hard part. You know, I was talking to someone a few weekends ago, and they were like, why can't Nintendo get third-party support? What's wrong? It's a hard thing to explain, but it's pretty much because Nintendo has the weaker systems, it makes it hard to port games to their system. You know, it's because people don't like to release games on only one system. They want to go multi-platform. They want Xbox One, PS4, and Switch, not just Switch. And they don't want the Switch to hold them back. As it is, they consider the Xbox One and PS4 to be holding them back because they want as much power as they can get their hands on. But even still, it does raise a lot of questions because I've mentioned that Japanese developers usually make their games more for the Vita and then port it to the PS4. And it's like, if that's the case, why don't you do that for, like, the Switch? And maybe that'll pick up in a bit. Like, I don't know when Nintendo sent out their Switch dev kits, but I do hear they're very cheap. I hear the Switch dev kits are, like, under 1,000? Or maybe, like, under 2,000, definitely. Which is, like, pocket change for a dev kit. They definitely want people on board with the Switch. but it's going to be a struggle. Because there's also the problem of Nintendo was notoriously draconian, and there is a question of, what kind of content Nintendo is going to allow. I think Nintendo of Japan has loosened up a whole lot, but Nintendo of America, I don't know. I really want to know what the deal is going to be with Senran Kagura 7, since the Senran Kagura series traditionally was on the 3DS. Will 7 be able to be released on Switch? And if so, will it be able to be released on Switch in America without causing panic and outrage? Nintendo's reputation of being this family-friendly company is both a blessing and a curse for them, as it tends to rob them of some very good games. I was going to start talking about Persona 5, but now I'm looking at the time. Guess we'll have to talk about Persona 5 after a quick PSA break, but I'm going to say I'm very impressed with it. Anyway, we've still got Reg Fest going on down here until 2 p.m., and then it starts back up again. When does it start back up again? Starts back up again 4:30 p.m. 4:30 p.m. at the administration building, and until 2 p.m. for right now. To register, you can get some food and prizes and raffles and things. Good times to be had by all. If you want to register for some college classes, and Fluff Hell is very nice, especially this program here, this radio program, where they're like, hey, Jell, get in the booth, do some radio, and I'm like, okay. If you want to learn use some radio, this place pretty nice. Big props to all the teachers here. Very, very nice radio broadcasting program. Anyway, yeah. Have I mentioned that I'm excited about Jack X coming to PS4? that makes me way too happy. And yeah, Persona 5 is that's gonna be a thing. Anyway, I guess I should take y'all back to a song and then some diverse PSAs for your diverse mind. Anyway, thank you for listening. 89.5 FM KCFE The Wave. Please stay tuned for more GameBabble Live, and thank you so much for listening. Hello, and welcome back to GameBabble Live here on 89.5 FM KCFE The Wave, diverse music for your diverse mind. I'm your host, Jell, and this is GameBabble Live, our video game news and information show, which airs every Wednesday from noon to 3 p.m. We just got done talking a whole lot about the Switch. Now it's time to talk about Persona 5, because it's finally here, and trust me, there are people who care. Now, Persona is an interesting series. It's part of a series called Shin Megami Tensei, which may well have been the first monster training game. Like, the Megami Tensei series dates back to the NES era. And, of course, they didn't come to America because they had a lot of highly controversial religious themes, actually. The majority of the Megami Tensei games are actually about making deals with demons and the end of the world, and you can side with God or the devil. That was generally a theme with Megami Tensei, and so a lot of those games didn't make it to America. The first one to actually get here was Persona 1, because Persona actually takes a lot of those elements away. It has a lot of the same monsters and stuff. It still has a conversation system, but you don't really team up with them. Back then, they just gave you cards and used that to create your personas. The main theme of the Persona series has always been that it takes place in high school, and it's about summoning your inner self, and which is your persona, which is some kind of monster that reflects you and gives you special abilities to fight against demons and other things. Now, the original Persona was one of the most butchered games of all time. When they brought it to America, they actually changed nearly every character design in the game, at least slightly, to make them all American. Because in the Japanese, when it took place in Japan, everyone was Japanese, and it was really obvious. They were like, no, we're going to try to pass it off as California, because that was a thing we did back in the 90s. We tried to pass Japan off as California. Happened with Clock Tower 2. But, yeah. So the original Persona, they changed a lot of the plot. They made all the characters American. They tried to pass the game off as taking place in America. And, oh yeah, they cut out over a third of the game. There was this event partway through the game where it splits drastically, known as the Ice Queen quest. And it was just cut from the US release. We missed out on, like, a third of the game. Now, the game has been re-released on PSP, retranslated with the Ice Queen quest back in and all the characters, like, Japanese again. In fact, they advertised that on the back of the box. But still, Persona 2 got a lot less butchering, but we only got, like, one of the two games. I forget if we actually got the second one on PSP or not. Either way, Persona 1 and 2, those were PS1 games, and they were very, very different from the modern Personas. Persona 3 was released way later on a way lower budget. And, like, you could tell, because it was just one big randomly generated dungeon, but it introduced a new element, which was the relationship systems. Like, now the game, like, it wasn't just, oh, it's, like, school kids and then all of a sudden the world's ending around them. No, now you actually, like, in between runs to the dungeon, go to class and make friends and join clubs, which raise your stats and you get friendships and, like, they added this all in there, and it definitely made Persona 3, and even more so 4, probably the lightest, softest Shin Megami Tensei games ever, but it appealed to a lot of people. So, Persona 3 did pretty well, and they made Persona 4 shortly afterwards, and that one was a smash freaking hit. A lot of the more dark elements, like the really weird, questionable religious elements, pretty much completely went away with Persona 4. It was definitely way lighter and happier, but it still had this interesting dark edge to it, and I think a lot of the reason why people liked it was, in that game you had to fight your persona to get your persona. Like, the whole idea was that people were being dragged into this alternate world where their dark side would manifest. And it's just this over-the-top representation of all the things bad about a person, everything they don't want anyone else to know. And if they wind up denying their dark side, it turns into a monster and murders them. But if they can fight off their dark side and accept their own flaws, then it becomes a persona and they can use it to fight against monsters. That was the theme of Persona 4, on top of all the friendship-building things, and it just took off like crazy, because we don't usually get... I think a lot of it is because we don't usually get video game characters that are that flawed and that three-dimensional. Because there's a ton of characters that you'll completely fall in love with in that game, sometimes literally, like I said, relationship system, and it's interesting to then see their dark side, see what the things they're hiding from everyone else is. And, saying, can you still accept them even though, this is their dark side? And I was like, oh, that's kind of neat. Only problem is that game took like 3 hours to freaking start. It can be kind of boring at times. And it was still made on a really small budget. Though it had multiple dungeons, they were all randomly generated dungeons. It was still pretty cheap. And that was a very late PS2 game. It got ported to the Vita with a bunch of enhancements. But it took off like crazy. Spawned 2 fighting games, a dancing game, and a quiz game, and an anime series, and people loved it. And Atlus was able to milk Persona 4 for a while. And it's one of those games where, like, it was a cult hit. And it got, like, so much hype behind it that it's really easy to kind of start hating it. Because you forget that it was actually kind of a low-budget game. Persona 4 was very, it wasn't super big budget. It wasn't meant to be the big thing that it became. So it's easy to look at it and say, oh, Persona 4 is not as good as people say it is, and that's because if you took out all the writing and the characters and you just focused on the RPG gameplay, yeah, it's pretty meh. not all that great. It's alright, but Persona 5 is here. And they took their time. Like I said, Persona 4, that was a PS2 game. This, though technically on PS3, PS4 has been out a while. It's the last PS3 game for America. I think it's the last one for Japan, too, from what I saw. Yeah. So, it's the last PS3 game. And it's on PS4 as well. And they took their sweet time. Because now, Persona's big. Now, people like Persona. Now they have expectations. They're like, well, now we have money to put money into a Persona game because we know it's going to sell well. And, oh, wow. Like, they went all in. That is... Persona 5 is the flashiest game I've probably ever seen. Every waking second of that game is some maddening piece of pop art flying in your face. Pausing the game is like a work of art. No, seriously, you pause the game and this like black and white and red image of the main character spins around and slams his hand against the screen. And the menu's on his hand. And then you click configuration and it shows a silhouette of him swinging in on a rope and it freezes in midair and his cape is like the menu. And then you choose like relationships and you see him spin around and out of his shadow pops the character whose relationship values you're checking. And it's like, like, when you win a fight, there's this, like, goofy animation, and the main character starts walking, and he, like, signals for them to come over, and there's this red after image, and there's this arrow that zigzags across the screen with how much experience and levels you got, and he starts running, and it, like, smoothly transitions from stages into combat. Like, when you sneak up on an enemy and attack them, it does this dynamic camera angle as your character leaps up and hits them in the face and rips their face off, and it zooms in on the face, and when it zooms out, the background's changed to the battle area, and you're, like, standing there, and when you beat them, and it does the zigzaggy arrow thing, and the camera pans around, it can smoothly fade back into the stage. The transitions are nuts. Everything is so over the top, amazingly pop art flashy nonsense that it's almost too much. I'm almost overloaded. Like, it borders on being garish, but at the same time, it's really, really cool. I love the fact that the game opens with some action. It opens, by the way, no real spoilers here. No, don't worry. But it opens with, like, it seems like it opens at the end with this big heist, and then, like, yeah, so you get to go through a dungeon, and now there's actual action in the dungeons, which, by the way, like, the dungeons aren't randomly generated anymore. They're actually designed, flashy dungeons, where you get to, like, jump around, and more than that, there's stealth elements, and normally I hate stealth games, but this is really light stealth, and it makes sense, because the theme is that you're phantom thieves now, so, okay, a stealth element makes sense. But the fact that you have dungeons where you see the enemies, and there's a stealth element, and there's some light platforming going on, and they're way more action-y, involved dungeons, and they look fantastic. And the game just opens with a good chunk of action, and then, like, you get caught, and the whole game is played as, like, a flashback in the middle of an interrogation, it seems. Maybe? At least a chunk of the first chunk of the game, at least. I don't know what happens after that interrogation. I haven't made it that far, but... And, again, this is not a spoiler. This is how the game freaking opens. I will say it gets you into the action much faster than Persona 4. Persona 4, I said, took 3 hours to start. As in, from turning on the game to getting to the first fight sequence, yeah, it took about 3 hours to get there in Persona 4. There was a lot of talking and setup. I kind of wish it would have just opened with an anime. I wish it would have just come with a DVD that had that first couple hours as an anime that I could just watch instead of the game. Persona 5 is a lot better about that. You, like, not counting the easy fight in the opening dungeon. After that, it takes about an hour to start to get into the first dungeon. It kind of drip feeds you. Like, I'm not fusing personas yet, and I'm probably a good 3.5 hours in, 4 hours. But I do have multiple characters in my party, but I'm not yet able to really take advantage of any sort of freedom to the game. So I'm still pretty early in. The battle system is traditional turn-based, but they've definitely zazzed it up by making it where you don't really scroll through a menu anymore. They've assigned each action to a button. So when it's your turn, if you just want to do a melee attack, you just... what was it? It was either X or circle to just do a melee attack. Oh, do skills, that's triangle, and that brings up a menu. But, like, you just hit the appropriate button, your character does the action, and it's all super stupidly flashy. Keep in mind, though, still Persona, game still has a lot of talking. Also, I am so happy to see it, like, bring back some of its darker elements. The enemies are actually the classic Shin Megami Tensei demons. The same old designs, but they look fantastic in the cell shading they have. And you can converse with them again and get them as your personas. And you do this by knocking them down and holding them at gunpoint. And then you can choose if you want their money, an item, or if you want to try to talk them into joining you as a persona you can summon, which gives you more skills you can use, as the main character can equip multiple personas and switch between them, giving him a wider array of skills that he can use. So, good to see that back. It's good to see it have a darker twist to it, because all the main characters this time are pretty much outcasts. That seems to be the running theme. Like, the main character, he saw a woman being harassed by some guy, pushed him aside. Oh, guess what? It's a corrupt politician. He sues the kid. He now has a freaking juvenile record, and it's all sorts of a thing. Anyway, I need to take a quick break, and we'll be right back to GameBabble Live shortly. Thank you very much, and hold on. Hello, and welcome back to GameBabble Live here on 89.5 FM KCFV, the wave, diverse music for your diverse mind, and I'm talking about Persona 5 and how crazy that game is. Sorry, things started flashing around here. Got a phone call. By the way, usually... Now I know why radio stations usually have a lot of assistants. I don't. So, back to Persona 5. As I was saying, game is much, much flashier than Persona 4. A lot of effort went into it. I'm liking that it's significantly darker and more Shin Megami Tensei-ish, and one of the themes is that all of the main characters are like unfair outcasts. The main character, again, early game stuff, this is not spoilers. The main character is a guy who, like, one day saw a woman being harassed by this guy and was like, hey, get off her, shoved him aside, he got hurt, turns out the guy was a corrupt politician, sued the kid, he now has a criminal record, has to move to a new town, no one will listen to him, everyone thinks that he's, like, going to murder everyone and is convinced he's a monster, even though he pretty much did nothing. And he runs into a lot of people who are exactly the same way. Like, nearly everyone is just, no one will listen to them, and they're completely innocent and did things for good reason. One of the running motifs of the game is rigged. There is no way to win. And yeah, the way people get their personas now is, like, a little bit on the gruesome side. Like, not quite, but, like, they make it clear that there's a lot of pain and that maybe getting a persona isn't the best thing and you might be losing your mind and you kind of have to tear your face off. Yeah. But anyway, the theme here is Phantom Thieves. Everyone has a mask, and they're stealing people's hearts because they can travel to a parallel dimension where people's feelings, the darkness in their hearts can manifest itself literally, and they can actually sneak into the palace of their hearts and steal their desires. But there's a problem there. On one hand, stealing these people's desires may cause them to reform, but on the other hand, people need desires to live. And if they screw up, someone could literally just lose the will to eat or sleep or drink because they have lost that desire. So there is a danger here. They're very much balancing on an edge here, and it's interesting. I'm happy to see a Shin Megami Tensei game be more Shin Megami Tensei again. See it have a little bit of that dark edge to it that made the series what it is, because a lot of the reason why people talk about this series is because it travels into territory most other games wouldn't dare. What I'm really loving, though, is the flashiness of Persona 5. The game is so stupidly pop art flashy, and the crazy thing to think about is, oh yeah, it should look nearly identical on PS3. Like, I don't know if there's any upgrades here. Because it's all, like, heavy cell shading and stylization. So, the graphics have reached their pinnacle. The way the game looks, it doesn't need to look any better. Could a game look better? Sure, but then it would be like a completely different visual style. They've found this visual style where they don't need a single polygon more to make it look good. The game it's kind of maddening, really. Just, egad. But right now, I'm still a little uncertain on it. Combat is still kind of a traditional turn-based RPG, kind of basic, except there, as with previous Persona games, there's a major focus on weaknesses and knocking down enemies so you can just maul them, or in this case, hold them at gunpoint. And guns are actually a new thing. Like, you have a melee weapon and a gun, and I'm not 100% certain about all of the details of the gun. Like, I know that some enemies are weak against guns, and that you can keep firing them until you run out of bullets, but the bullets don't regenerate until you leave the dungeon and re-enter later, so you have a limited array of bullets. I don't know, I'm still early in, still a very interesting game, super curious about seeing where this whole thing goes. I'm very invested in the characters, partially because I can relate a little bit from my own high school experiences. So I'm like, okay, how did the system screw over every one of these people? I gotta know who these people are. I'm really glad that I didn't pay any attention to this game, because honestly, Persona 4, I barely played it. The fact that it took 3 hours to start and was so boring for those first 3 hours was enough to make me say, Chie is great, but I'm done. I played the fighting game. Really should have played the dancing game. And I had my fill of Persona 4. I was good. But that about wraps up Persona. I think we're gonna get to our PlayStation VR report, the thing that maybe two other people care about. I like to pretend. But first, a quick break, and then the PlayStation VR report, because things are really picking up for April. But, quick break. So stay tuned to 89.5 FM KCFV The Wave, diverse music for your diverse mind, for more GameBabble Live. Thank you so much for listening.
You're listening to KCFV Ferguson. Now jamming 24 hours a day. This is...
Hello and welcome back to GameBabble Live here on 89.5 FM KCFV The Wave, diverse music for your diverse mind. I'm your host, Jell. This is GameBabble Live, our video game news and information show, which airs every Wednesday from noon to 3 p.m. We just got done talking about Persona 5, with its dark themes and copious amounts of pop art flash that is just mind-blowing. Earlier, we talked about the Nintendo Switch and that you should probably check the downloadable library after you get done beating your Zelda to find another game to play. Because, boxed releases going a little slow. Also, we did the Anime in Theaters report. This Friday, Your Name will be in theaters. And that is going to be going until the 13th. But from about the 11th to the 13th, or not 11th, about 9th? 8th? No. I'm going to say from 10th to the 13th it's pretty much just going to be at Tivoli. But 7th, 8th, and 9th, you'll be able to find it in a couple of regular theaters, and it'll have multiple showtimes. So if you want to see Your Name, which is supposed to be a big deal, that would be the thing. Also, on Friday, we have the Anime Invasion at the Science Center at 6 p.m. They'll be showing Spirited Away on the OmniMax there around 10. I'm hearing tickets are $6, $5 for students. Maybe? I've got some conflicting reports. It's a little hard to find functional information. My sheet says it's free, but that's apparently wrong, and I believe it, because I'm sorry, you're going to have just free Spirited Away at the OmniMax? No, people would flood that theater. You got to stem the tide somehow, as it is $5-6 for Spirited Away in the OmniMax. That's already going to be a packed theater. It's pretty much going to be an anime convention, like a short one-day anime convention at the Science Center. Great way to kick off the convention season, am I right? So, that's the thing. April 26th, Cabaneri of the Iron Fortress, double feature movie thing will be 7 p.m. at the St. Charles 18. And in May, on May 12th and 13th, My Neighbor Totoro will be at the Tivoli at midnight and at noon on the 13th of May. But, getting back to games, I also mentioned Street Fighter EX4 might be a thing. My mind is so blown by that. We thought it was an April Fool's Day joke, but the company that makes Street Fighter EX, Arika, ran a stream of the game for more than 3 hours of people playing this version that only has 3 characters and 2 stages. But looks good. Now, mind you, when I say Street Fighter EX, I just mean the EX characters. The characters they had were Garuda, Kairi, and I think her name is Hokuto? Either way, it was just those guys. It was just those 3 characters, but they had it fully playable. Looked nice. Looked better than Street Fighter V, if you ask me. I'm completely on board, and if they decide to kickstart it, I will absolutely pitch in, as long as Pullum Perna at least is in it. I don't care if there's Street Fighter characters. The EX characters kind of don't fit with Street Fighter, and they're kind of really awesome on their own. So if they want to just do EX characters, maybe bring back some from Fighting Layer, I'd be fine. In fact, they could probably re-release give Fighting Layer its first home port, and that could help fund it. If you're unfamiliar, Fighting Layer is a fighting game that the people who made Street Fighter EX made that had 2 Street Fighter EX1 characters in it, Blair Danes and, oh geez, what's the name of that other guy? The guy who goes, Fireball. What's that guy's name? Whatever. Alan Snyder. Blair Danes and Alan Snyder were in this game called Fighting Layer, which was Arika's own game. And yeah, it actually looks really cool, and I'd love to play it, but I haven't gotten around to trying to emulate it because there is no home version. You know, they could remedy that and make a home version, and that could help fund Street Fighter EX4. In fact, I'm gonna go tweet that at them when I get home. Hey, Arika, release Fighting Layer on PS4, and it'll help fund EX4. Tell everyone buy Fighting Layer. I'd buy it. Especially when it comes to fighting games. Anytime someone does, an official port, 9 times out of 10, I will buy it over trying to emulate it because emulation can sometimes just be sloppy and a mess. Getting the official company to say, here you go, yeah. Also, I mentioned Senran Kagura Peach Beach Splash come this summer to America. And Jack X will be coming to PS4 as a PS2 classic. They're bringing the Jak and Daxter games to PS4, and yes, we had the collection on PS3, but Jak X was not on there. And Jak X Combat Racing is the best vehicle-based game ever made, in my personal warped opinion. even though it is crazy buggy. And the problem is, it only works on fat PS2s. If you try to run it on a slim, it will crash when it tries to save the game, and it saves the game a lot. It has auto-saving on by default. So, yeah, Jack X kind of needed to be ported to something else, and I'm so far beyond excited for it to come to PS4. I can't wait. I'll play through the whole game again. I'm ready. I'm so ready. Like, honestly, even if you don't know anything about Jak and Daxter, Jak X Combat Racing is something that needs to be tried. That game is so good. And, yeah. Also, I mentioned some Nintendo Switch things. Some people are saying their systems are overheating and starting to bend and warp. But those are people who say they primarily use it in portable mode. So it's a question of, is it the screen, is it the processor, or is it that they are, when they're playing it in portable mode, they're actually, like, bending the system? That's the real question. It's very minor bending, but the main reason people are concerned is, Switch has only been out for, like, a month, and they're already starting to bend? What happens in a year? Does it turn into a curlicue? Do we have Switch burritos? That could be a problem. But we'll see. We'll see how things turn out. I'm very excited to see how Nintendo redesigns the Switch. Because I don't see them doing like a literal Switch 2 too terribly fast, but like a Switch Lite or Switch Plus, like the DS Lite. I see that on the very near horizon. Because they've got some design flaws they need to work out before the Switch becomes something truly incredible. And if Nintendo wants to win instantly, I've been sitting here saying I wish the Switch would play 3DS games. If it played DS and 3DS games, it'd be amazing, because I'd love to play those on a TV, and then it would actually have, like, a lineup of games. If Nintendo wants to win, when they re-release, when they make the Switch 2, or not 2, the Switch 2.0, Switch Plus, whatever you want to call it, which, by the way, they have not announced yet, but they're going to. There's too many design flaws on the Switch. When they release the better designed Switch, if they put in another cartridge slot for 3DS, that would be cash money right there. They might be onto something there. They might be able to convince me to buy a second Switch if they did that. I would buy a second Switch if they did that. I want to play my 3DS games on a screen. And getting a modded 3DS that can output to a TV is a pain in the butt and costs as much as a Switch anyway. No, seriously. There's like one guy who does it. Everyone wants one, so you pretty much have to be a famous YouTuber to get one of these, and it costs $300 to get the mod. So, yeah. And yeah, I'm not a famous YouTuber. I got about 50 people that watch my videos. They usually get about 50 views. If you're curious, go look up GameBabble Show on YouTube. I do have a YouTube show. I need to get out another episode. Thinking of maybe doing a review of Corix, because the guy who made that game is begging. And speaking of Corix, it's time for the PlayStation VR report, because I like to pretend people care about PlayStation VR. Yes, PlayStation VR, the unit that exists in a bizarre limbo state between huge success and gigantic failure. And yeah, Sony did admit that it was selling shockingly well after, firing the Riggs developers. Good job. But Sony was like, wow, this thing's selling shockingly well. This might actually be a thing. But now the question is, can it stay a thing? I'm actually very concerned, mostly because of Corix. I spent a lot of the weekend poking my head into Corix looking for matches, because not a lot of people are playing it. I think I talked about this game, I talked about this game last week. What it is it's a real-time strategy game in VR, and it's honestly really, really good. And it's made by, like, one guy. But it's a really good, very meaty, real-time strategy game, good online play, loving the thing. When I get to play multiplayer, it is super fun. But I'm looking at these leaderboards that they have. And, it's saying that I'm, like, 125th place out of 267. I believe that means only 267 people have played this game online. And it's one of the best games on PlayStation VR. That's a problem. That is a huge problem. Because it's a good game. And if a good game like this gets that bad of numbers, ooh, that's not good. Speaking of which, though, Corix had an update because the guy who made the game hangs out on the PSVR Reddit, which, honestly, a lot of PlayStation VR developers do because, well, it's a way to directly connect with your fans. And yeah, he showed up there and listens to the fans, and he released an update that finally lets you rotate the camera the other way, thank you, and also adds a minigame. Turns out there was a hidden minigame in the credits screen, and he moved it to the multiplayer lobby. Like, now, in the multiplayer lobby, there's a how to play thing you can click on, and there's also a button that says feeling bored, and when you click feeling bored, a little shooter minigame pops up where you shoot projectiles at asteroids and try to hit them, and it gives you a score. And basically, every time you fire a shot, it deducts 1 point, and every time you hit an asteroid, it adds 2 points. So it's all about accuracy, and point is, it's something to do when you're waiting for people to join your lobby so you can play a multiplayer game. Brilliant job, thank you very much. That's good. But the big news for the PlayStation VR this week is Mortal Blitz, which has finally come out. I talked about this earlier. This is a Korean-made, basically light gun shooter. It's essentially Time Crisis in VR. And I played the demo, and I was like, this is amazing. When is it coming out? And at the end of the demo, it says coming 2016. And I played it in 2017, and the company hadn't updated their website or their Twitter in many, many months. And I was getting worried, because I was like, this game is amazing, and I need more. So I might maybe have made a video on my channel that's just me gushing about how much I love the demo and need the full game, so that way I could send it to the developers and beg them to release the game. Then they updated their YouTube channel, and I might have begged them more. So I'm very happy to see that the game finally came out, and oh my god, it is not perfect. Like, they haven't fixed the controller orientation, and that's definitely an issue. See, in most VR shooting games, you hold the controller vertically, straight up and down, and that feels very natural. In Mortal Blitz, you point the controllers at the screen, which feels very unnatural, especially since they're not always guns. Sometimes you're just using your hands, and it feels like you're using hands on sticks. So that's a little awkward. It definitely hurts my aim. I've had some problem with my left hand running away, but that could just be my setup. But the biggest issues with Mortal Blitz is that there's really only two different kinds of environments, trains and labs. There's 5 stages. It lasts about an hour, hour and a half. Game consists of 2 trains and 3 labs. And there are no bosses. And when you beat the 5th stage, it just says, congratulations, you've beaten episode 1. More episodes will be available in the near future. I hope so. And I'm okay with them saying, okay, this is going to be episodic. We're going to add more levels. Good. I'm on. Episode 1 needed an ending, though. Because it's just very abrupt. But I know 1 hour, 5 stages sounds really short. That's about what a Time Crisis game is, though. It's an arcade shooter, and I felt like I got my money's worth. It's a very full game. And it's the kind of thing that makes me really reflect on VR games. Because one of the big problems people have had is that VR games have been too short. They're generally like an hour or 2 long. And everyone's like, what the crap? Why are these games so short? And it's been a major running complaint. But that's because the most popular genre in VR is the VR experience. I.e., stand there and walk around, maybe solve a few puzzles or play a minigame, and mostly be talked at. Like, even the PlayStation VR Worlds disc has 2 of these. The London Heist, which is like their big game that they love showing off on the PSVR worlds. Yeah, it has some shooting segments, but the majority of it is just you sitting there and being talked at in unskippable cutscenes. Then the other one is just an uninteractive game where you get attacked by a shark. Okay? Like, there are way too many just VR experiences, and even the really good ones are annoying. Like Batman Arkham VR. I picked that up. Graphics are amazing. It's super fun. It's the kind of game you just gotta play. So glad it's only $20. Because, yeah, it's over in, 2-3 hours, and then you'll never play it again. Because there's no point. Because, well, all you do is solve puzzles. There's not really a challenge. The puzzles have the same solution every time, and most of it is about standing there and listening to a story, and when you already know the story and you already know how to solve the puzzles, there's nothing there. Mortal Blitz, however, is an arcade light gun shooter. So, okay, fine, it's an hour long, but then you want to play through it again to get a higher score. You want to play through it again because there was a challenge. You want to play through it again to see if you can do it without getting hit. And that makes it so much better. The game, I'm surprised that the game actually lets you play without a move controller. You can actually just use the light on your PS4 DualShock as a gun. But you cannot use two DualShocks. That's actually a system level thing. You can't have two DualShock 4s assigned to a single profile. But it has controller options. Like, you can use one DualShock 4 and one PlayStation Move, or just use one PlayStation Move. They recommend two moves. And yeah, they've also added a new thing since the demo, which is the groggy system. Basically now, if you shoot an enemy in the head, they get dizzy. They should get dead, but they have good armor. So they get dizzy, and once they're dizzied, you can take the gun out of your hand and use the grappling line. You have a telekinetic grappling laser thing, and you can use that to throw objects around and stuff. And if you use that on a groggy enemy, they get flung up into the air and time slows down. And then you're supposed to throw a bunch of objects at them and shoot them and get a big combo, and they drop a bunch of health for you. But you could also use that slowed down time to intercept enemy bullets and shoot down other enemies and get them primed so that way they're groggy. So that way, as soon as groggy time ends, you can fling them and keep it going and just keep the game in constant slow motion, which is really, really effective in the second half of the game when you start fighting the, mutant zombie things that you have to shoot in the heart instead of the head, because they throw fireballs at you, and the fireballs can actually be shot out of the air. So if you keep time always slowed, you can just shoot all the fireballs out of the air, and it's great. I'm loving that game in spite of all of its flaws. Like, sometimes it's a little tricky to teleport, and the way you hold the guns is dumb, and I've had some hiccups with the tracking, though that could just be my setup. It is, it's so nice to play a VR game that's a video game. Because so many things are just, pretentious, oh, you're inside another world, isn't that crazy? There's so much pretentious, artsy crap. So I'm so happy to play a game that is literally just a game. Like, the plot is barely explained at all. I have no clue what most of the acronyms they have stand for. All I know is that I'm apparently Yohei, and I'm fighting some kind of evil organization that is making monsters. Okay, I've got guns. I'm going to shoot things. I am going to shoot things. And then you got lots of things on your HUD. You got arrows telling you when there are enemies and items and things off screen, which I actually really appreciate. That's a very nice change. And yeah, when you do the friggin' groggy time combos, you've got a big logo that pops up on screen and announces that's like, Chaser, Hunter, Annihilator. And I'm like, good. It feels like I'm inside of an arcade machine. And that's good, because that is not an experience I've had yet in VR. Oh, I can be a bird. Got a couple games that let me be a bird. But nothing that lets me be inside of an arcade machine. And that makes me happy. I'm a very happy person because of that, in case you can't tell. I'm going to go beat the game again when I get home. If I don't pass out first. But yeah, next week, Symphony of the Machine, which is another one of those VR experience type deals, and Starblood Arena, which is going to be a box release, and I'm super excited for that. I pre-ordered it, can't wait. Starblood Arena is promising it'll have online versus, as well as an online co-op horde mode, as well as a single-player story mode, which I think each character has their own story and ending, which is good. It has multiple characters. Like I said, Starblood Arena is basically Descent meets Overwatch. If you never played the old 90s PC game Descent, it has so many weird controllers built for it. It was a game where you flew a spaceship through a series of tunnels, and the spaceship, didn't constantly move forward. It moved forward when you press forward, but the thing was, you were spinning around in 360 degrees, aiming and shooting through tunnels, and it was super crazy and disorienting, and they're like, let's do that in VR with head-tracking-based aiming. And head-tracking-based aiming is great. That is where you look at something, and it's targeted. And Riggs uses that. It's super fun. And combining head-tracking-based aiming with 360-degree flippy spaceships in tunnels, death matches, that sounds like fun. And then you've got a bunch of wacky characters with their own personalities that you can play as, and it's gonna be fun. I'm super excited for that. Not as excited as I was for Mortal Blitz, though, because that is the most arcade thing I've played in such a long time. Oh. Well, look at the time. It's 2:25. And I'm starting to get a little parched. So, we are going to take another break. And you know what? Because I liked this so much last time, we're going to take a Duran Duran break. This goes out to you, Mom. Thanks for the printout. We're going to take a break. Go listen to Last Night in the City by Duran Duran featuring Chiesa? Either way, that was a really nice song. Go listen to it again. And, when we get back, I think it will be recap time. So thank you very much for listening to GameBabble Live here on 89.5 FM, KCFV, the Wave Diverse Music for your diverse mind. I'm your host, Jel. Thank you for joining us. We will be back in a little bit after my throat is no longer dry. Thank you so much for listening, and enjoy. Hello and welcome to GameBabble Live here on 89.5 FM KCFV, the Wave, diverse music for your diverse mind. I'm your host, Jel. This is GameBabble Live, our video game news and information show, which airs every Wednesday from noon to 3 p.m. And guess what time it is? It is 2:49, nearly 2:50, and that means that I need to wrap things up and give you a quick recap of everything we've talked about. So, what came out this week? Well, the big game was Persona 5, which is super flashy and amazing because, Persona 4 was a big cult hit, but it was made on a kind of low budget, and so they took a lot of time and put a lot of money into Persona 5, and it is available on both PS3 and PS4, and it is the flashiest thing ever. Last game on PS3, by the way. Good way to go out with a bang. Nice. Speaking of which, last game on Wii U, Animal Gods, comes out tomorrow, so see you later, Wii U. We had a good time together, even though you had no games. And Friday, Bulletstorm Full Clip Edition hits PS4 and Xbox One. Also this week, we had Parappa the Rapper Remastered, Lego City Undercover hit a bunch of systems, and I was super excited about Mortal Blitz, which is basically Time Crisis for your PlayStation VR. By the way, there's also a game called Viri VR. Oh, ignore it. Viri VR is literally just videos of animals in 3D. You can look those up on YouTube. It's so dumb. Looks like Rocket League also has the Fate of the Furious expansion. And Shovel Knight expansion on the 3DS. Switch apparently has something called Graceful Explosion Machine, which I can't find any information about. Next week is Yooka-Laylee. Starblood Arena comes out for the PlayStation VR, and Caro Blaster, which is the new game from the makers of Cave Story. There we go, Cave Story, which, by the way, Cave Story will be coming to the Switch. As for anime in theaters, this Friday, Your Name will be in theaters until the 13th. It will be in normal theaters with multiple show times, like 7th, 8th, 9th, maybe 10th for a few. But until the 13th, it will be playing at the Tivoli. Cabaneri of the Iron Fortress will be airing on April 26th at 7 p.m. at St. Charles 18th. And May 12th and 13th is My Neighbor Totoro at the Tivoli. And also on Friday is the Anime Invasion at St. Louis Science Center. They will be playing Spirited Away on the OmniMax at, like, I believe they said 10 p.m. And it's basically a miniature anime convention, so you might want to get on down there. Other news, Street Fighter EX4 might be a thing. They have a working prototype, but they're trying to get interest and funds to make the game. There might be a Kickstarter. Who knows? Let's see, there's talk about the Nintendo Switch warping and bending from overheating. But Lego City Undercover does not require a 13 gig download for the Switch. It's all on the cart. No one knows why that showed up on there. Cyberman Kagura Peach Beach Splash will be coming to America this summer. And Jak X Combat Racing, along with the rest of the Jak and Daxter games, will be coming to PS4 as PS2 classics in the near future. So, there you go. That is all the stuff I talked about on the show today. Thank you very much for listening to GameBabble Live. I'm your host, Jell. I hope you've enjoyed, and please tune in next week when we talk about whatever happens in between this week and next week. Who knows? It's a mystery, because you never know when a company will randomly say, hey, we're making Street Fighter EX4, except maybe not, I don't know. You never know when it'll happen. So, stay tuned. One more thing. Tomorrow, apparently, Mass Effect Andromeda is being updated to suck less. So, it will be much better tomorrow. So, I look forward to that or something. Anyway, this is Jell. You've been GameBabbled. Thank you for listening. Please join us next week. I now bring you back to the diverse music for your diverse mind of 89.5 FM KCFV The Wave. Thank you for listening. See you next week.